we could go ahead and let's talk about episode number 2.
So yeah, episode 2. I mean, it kind of continues with what we saw in episode 1, and we kind of get drawn deeper and deeper into the mystery of what's going on. I gotta say, I kind of get aliens vibes from this. And I know you mentioned that Alien and Aliens are your 2 favorite movies in the franchise. But for me, that's when things start to pick up, right? Because if the first movie, you kind of get this world building and kind of like a sense of dread. Here, things begin to pick up. It becomes a bit more action oriented, right?
Yeah.
You begin to see what's going on with the soldiers as they're going through this apartment block, and there's still that level of suspense, but it's not a horror suspense. It's more of like, around the next corner, that's when that's when you encounter these creatures, and that's when
you get eviscerated.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say this too. The one thing that I found kind of interesting was when Wendy is getting ready, she takes that stuffed animal with her, but she also takes that blade from the paper cutter and she like rips it off and sticks it on her back. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, what the hell is she doing with that thing? But we come to find out, maybe that was a good thing she brought that with her. So let's go and dive into episode 2.
Yeah, if you're a kid, right? If you're a kid of our age, right? I don't know if they still have those things in schools, but we all remember they're always like kind of like an art room and stuff. And like you never used it or played around with it because it was super.
You asked the teacher. You said, "Teacher, I need to cut this. Can you cut this for me?"
Yeah.
I think the first time I actually used it was in high school when I was in art class, because elementary and middle school it was off limits. Like you did not touch that at all.
Yep. Yep. So, kind of fun to think about because she's like a kid, so she probably doesn't surprise me she thinks like that, right? So, but yeah, so this episode absolutely kind of picks up where we leave off, where we got Joe and kind of his team as they're going through the crash site, and then we see that the Xenomorph, right, has survived the crash, right? So the Xenomorph comes in and kind of separates Joe from his team there, and I had to kind of laugh when I saw this because he's running towards an elevator, right? Now, historically speaking, right, elevators are like the worst place to go for stuff because you know how most things they build tension, and like someone runs to an elevator and then they're just sitting there like mashing the button and be like, "Oh, go close faster or close faster." I like how this did the exact opposite, where he just kind of runs into the elevator and then immediately goes for him. So I don't know. It's a very small thing, but it was just something I found kind of amusing because we see so many times
it's kind of weird too how they kind of freak out, and you kind of have to like knock them on the head and just say, "Hey, you guys do have weapons on you. You know that, right?"
That's also true. True.
It's like whenever they're in that situation, they automatically forget, "Oh, I'm carrying a gun. I'm just going to flip out and start running." I do think it's funny though. Do you remember that scene where when they're going through and they're like telling people to get out, and they knock on that one door, and this guy he's having this weird Louis the 14th party going on. And I'm watching like motherfucker, I hope you get killed. I was like, dude, like how could you not know that something crashed into your building? I mean, something that big is definitely going to leave a mark. And furthermore, like how is it that one unit did not get damaged? Because everything else is like falling apart, but that one apartment, for some weird reason, is intact. Like there's not a scratch or a blemish or anything on it.
Yeah, I kind of chalked it up to like, I mean, it crashed at the bottom, so who knows how, like, we don't see them fully explore everything, right? So I kind of just chalk it up a little bit to that, where it's just like, they just kind of focus on the small things. So I'm sure like the floors above it are probably not impacted either. But there was definitely some oddities there. So, so we have like, as Joe is in the elevator, right? We have Kirsch, right? So Kirsch is the chief scientist, and he's a synthetic from Prodigy, right? So he's there to kind of lead the, I guess, rescue mission or retrieval mission, depending on who you're talking to. But he leads the group with the 6 Lost Boys with him. So Wendy obviously is more interested in what's happening with her brother Joe. So Wendy goes with the Lost Boys slightly to go find Joe, and Kirsch, he takes the remaining 4 Lost Boys to go deeper into the ship to locate these specimens. And as Kirsch and his team are going to find those specimens, this is where we kind of get introduced to a few more of them out there, right? So in total, there's 5, right? So we know the Xenomorph, right? We've seen that one before. And we do have these tick things that we've seen. So we see 2 other ones here. So we see there's this weird, I don't know, giant plant flora thing, right? That's there. Just like kind of I don't know how it moves or anything. I don't think we actually ever see them move, so I don't know how they move around. But we see that kind of in this hallway. And then we also have, and I would consider this one to be kind of like the coolest introduction. There's this like little like eye squid thing, right? Creature.
Yeah, the Oculus. Yeah.
Yes, the Oculus. Thank you. And I'm going to call it just a weird eye creature out through this. I know that they all have their technical names, and you're right. It absolutely is the Oculus. So we'll be kind of using them interchangeably. I just said the eyeball creature to make my life easier. So, but what's really interesting with that one, right, is that it looks like an eye, and what it does is it just kind of like goes in there, kind of like rips out the old eye, injects itself, and it takes control of the organism. So it's kind of like you get lobotomized, and then you get replaced by this alien entity. Super creepy, right? And we see that this creature, it's taking control of this cat, right? And then as the Lost Boys all enter the room, the cat creature, right, sees it, and this is where you see like the eye kind of detaches itself from the cat creature, and attempts to go after the Lost Boys, and it particularly goes after the character Nibs, right? So this is a female synthetic, right? She's got the red hair. So she goes after Nibs. But luckily, the group is able to subdue that creature by putting it, under like a little box, and they put like a little weight on top of it. So, yeah, that's how they subdue it. So we see the creatures, right? How did you like the introduction of more than just the Xenomorph, right? Did you think that was a fun inclusion, or do you feel like maybe you're adding too much to a story that doesn't have to be super like crazy or have a whole bunch of stuff in it?
Well, I mean, it definitely shows that the alien universe isn't populated just by the Xenomorphs, or
yes, yeah,
or if you believe what they're showing in Predator Badlands, the Predators as well. But But I just like how they're introducing all these different creatures. What really made me scratch my head was, why is Weyland Yutani going after these other alien creatures? Because because at least we know with the Xenomorphs, they're trying to do something where they're trying to develop some sort of serum where they're, I guess, hybridizing it with humans, like what we saw in Alien Romulus. I mean, I guess they're just curious. The one alien creature that kind of made me scratch my head a lot were those tick creatures. The ones that kind of like drank everyone's blood and got all fat and gorged and all that stuff. That kind of made me wonder, like, what exactly were they going to do with them? And then that big plant creature too,
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was a reason why they got captured. It wasn't like they're like, you see an alien creature and you capture it. I'm sure that there were standing orders like study, locate creatures who could be of potential use to us. Capture it and bring it home for study, right?
Yes.
And it does add a bit of a danger element too, because obviously, we've never seen these creatures before, so we have no idea what they're capable of.
Yes.
So I do have to ask you this question, because I know I know when we did our discussion of Alien Romulus, you expressed a bit of disgust about the way that the Xenomorph implants itself into people to gestate. What fate do you think is much worse, being attacked by the Oculus or being implanted by a facehugger?
I'm still going with the ooh. I'm still gonna go with the face hugger.
Because you're still you, right? You're not being mind
Yeah,
controlled
like I
by
feel,
the thing.
because I feel like once it like gets into my mind, right, it's over for me, right? So like I feel like, yeah, it's gonna stuck having my eye get plopped out, right? Like I'm not gonna have fun with that.
Yeah, it's
Um,
kind of like Starro from the Suicide
yeah,
Squad.
yeah, right. It's gonna happen. I mean, because if you think about it, it's kind of like similar in attitude, right? The face hugger latches onto your face, and then it just kind of like sits on there. And yes, you are like kind of rendered unconscious, so I guess like that's okay. But then you wake up, you have this terrible realization that there's something growing inside of you that's very interested in getting out, and you're typically not going to have a good day when that happens. I feel like with this, it's a similar concept where it just tries to like latch onto your face, in particular where your eye socket is. But I feel like, once that's over, that's it, right? Now, granted, it would absolutely be terrible if you find out that like you still have some form of like your like I guess consciousness is there, but you're in no control. So maybe as we discover more about the eyeball creature, like it could easily be the worst one. But there's still something about getting an embryo put inside of you and it growing up and then it blowing out your stomach, that is just too unappealing for me to pass up. That's the one I'm going to pass on if I
Yeah,
have to be killed by something. So
I mean, so that eye creature kind of again it reminds me of Starro because once it latches onto your face, that's it. Like you're no longer you.
yeah,
You're basically a host for whatever this alien creature happens to be. Whereas with the face hugger, I mean, your life expectancy shortens quite considerably, but you still have control of your faculties for however long you have before you go to meet your maker, right?
yes, yes,
So at least then you still have time to like do whatever it is you need to do before this thing comes out of your chest, and then that's it. Um,
I would just sign up for neither, right? Like, there's just I'm obviously not going to be a a deep space researcher, right? Clearly, is not the job line for me.
yeah, I just wanted to ask because as I was watching, I'm like this is pretty gruesome. Like,
Yeah,
because
they all suck.
yeah, because really there really is no like quote unquote good way to die, right?
Yeah,
Because if you're not being mind controlled by this like eye squid creature thing, or having your stomach burst open by a chest burster, then you're basically being drained of your life force by these ticks, or you get swallowed
or
up
the
by that
plant, right?
plant creature.
Yeah,
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 or well, I was gonna say it's not even better if you're a synthetic or a hybrid because they're like these like bat creatures that basically dissolve and eat your metal
yeah,
parts too.
yeah.
So
A fly. So yeah. So no, a lot of bad options here, right? These are very dangerous species that are probably not something that should be out.
I mean, how much? I mean, but I kind of have to wonder, like how much hazard pay, or how much like dirt
Not
do they have
enough.
to have? How much
Not
dirt do
enough.
they have to have on you in order to like make you go out into space for 65 years, scour all these different worlds, put them in in containers, and then bring them back to Earth? It's like, I mean, I mean, it's yeah, like you said, it's not enough money. And honestly, I would rather sign up to be one of those expendables like in Mickey 17, where at least yeah, I get killed, but at least I keep coming back. I'm not having to risk my life having to collect things that could kill me in like 100 different ways.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm just gonna stay here on planet Earth and just hope that I don't see any giant spaceships comes out of the sky because I gotta
Well, you
know
better
all these movies.
well you
Don't
better
go
stay out
near
of New Siam, Lee, if that's the
Don't-
case.
That's true. So, but yeah. So we get to see more and more of these creatures, right? Which I do agree is cool to see them adding more into this as opposed to just strictly the xenomorph. So Joe, right? So he's coming out of the elevator at this stage, and we see him inside the building. And like you mentioned earlier, there's this very bizarre dinner party that's going on. Joe's and one of the other rescuers is trying to like help them out, and they act like total douchebags, and I'm like, my God, like how high can you be where like a giant ship crashed into your building and you have no reaction to it, right? It's just like something, whatever they're having that party, I want to have some of that because like they're totally out of it, right? I just don't, I just can't imagine, being that totally off that you have no idea what's going on when this giant ship parks into the basement of the building.
Well, not even that. Like, it's a full-on costume party, dude. Like,
yes.
The guy's like wearing wigs and everyone's got fake moles and they've got powdered their faces. Like, they're dressed to the nines in that one.
Yes.
Like, it's not like a casual get together. It's like, let's go ahead and dress like fruitcakes from the 18th century,
Yeah, it was. They went all out, though. I will say, right? Those costumes was pretty good, so they're really committed to whatever cause they were going for. So this is where we get to see the Xenomorph, right, in action. And I will tell you this, right? That Xenomorph does not disappoint, right? That Xenomorph, it kills one of the rescuers, right, and then goes into that that bizarre dinner party room, right, with the Caspians, whoever the hell they are. That the Xenomorph just like destroys everything, right? Like everyone in the room is killed. You see like the guy that's crawling and he only has like the upper half of his body, and it is just it's crazy, right? I think it just goes to help demonstrate just how dangerous the Xenomorph is, right? If this is something where you haven't really had enough experience with the Alien franchise, you're going to learn very quickly, right? That Xenomorph is not something you mess around with. So with that being said, though, right? So you see Joe go into the room, right? And the Xenomorph comes after him. And luckily, who shows up? It's actually Morrow, who kind of like shocks it, and it like I guess kind of incapacitates it. So kind of interesting, right? So go from demolishing a whole bunch of people, granted without any weapons or anything. Then he has this weapon that particularly subdues it, and he captures it, right? So Morrow takes the Xenomorph out of the room, and eventually Wendy shows up, and she's finally gets a chance to see Joe face to face, right? So this is kind of her first interaction since she's kind of been out of his life, right? And we don't really know how long she's been away from Joe, right? Like, we know she was terminally ill. We don't really know when, or I don't recall if they said when she went to, be at this Prodigy Island. So I'm not sure chronologically when all that's happening. But obviously, she's been, turned into the hybrid, right? Or she's, had her consciousness moved into a synth body. And she's, getting to meet her brother for the first time in this new form. So she's obviously apprehensive over like just spilling the beans because, anyone's gonna have a hard time expecting that. So she, kind of tells Joe, hey, let's, go deeper in the ship. And we're going to, save some more people. And as they're going down, she does eventually spill the beans. Well, I guess technically slightly kind of ruins it for her.
Yeah.
But then she kind of talks about it. Obviously, Joe doesn't really believe her because, who would ever believe that, right? You think your sister's dead. You went to a funeral. But then she kind of shares some childhood memories. And they have, this kind of, I would say, nice scene, right? Where they kind of like give a nice little hug together as brother and sister. Being reacquainted after some time.
Once the test has been concluded, he automatically comes to accept her, and that's pretty much it. Like, there's no apprehension afterwards,
Yeah, and to me, I don't have a problem with that, right? Because I feel like she justified her existence, right? She has that shared moment that they had, that he had full confidence in it. So yeah, is it weird? But I also think when you live in a world where there's synthetics and cyborgs and everything like that, I feel like it's easier to come to terms with something like that happening. Now, obviously, he has a lot of frustration over, transparency, the lack of things that happen, which comes up later. But, I can kind of understand in that moment, like, hey, there's no way somebody has this memory. Clearly, this is her. It's not somebody, screwing with me or anything like that. So yeah, he does accept her relatively quickly. But unfortunately, their reunion is very short-lived because as they go deeper, they find this little area, right, that has a bunch of the Xenomorph eggs laid in there. And we see a Xenomorph pop out, and it abducts Joe. And that's how it ends, right? That's the cliffhanger for episode 2, right? Ends with that happening. And, I would say as like episode 2 goes, I think it does exactly what I would want it to do, right? We start to learn more about the characters. We start to see how everyone's kind of interacting. We get introduced to some more of the creatures that are there. And I mean, to me, I have absolutely no issues with it. At this stage, I got really no qualms. I've enjoyed kind of the world building. This obviously feels very much to be, it pretty much just picks up right where the first episode goes. So you get to see more and more. And, I didn't really have anything that came to mind that I was like, oh, that's like, really terrible or anything like that. So any thoughts from you on episode 2? Anything that you were really excited for, or maybe something that you just didn't really like?
Well, I kind of like how episode 2 kind of like draws you deeper and deeper into the story, right?
Yeah.
Because because episode 1 literally kicks off with a bang. It the ship crashes into New Siam, into an apartment block, and then people have to go in and rescue any survivors. So it just keeps up with that theme of search and rescue, and then lo and behold, they uncover something. Maybe they should have just left in the ship. I will say it is kind of interesting because you alluded to this earlier. The world is divided, between these 5 corporations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a very delicate balancing act because obviously everybody stays in their lane, right?
Yeah,
so the fact that you've got so the fact that you have a Weyland-Yutani ship landing on Prodigy territory, that's a bit of a head scratcher, because you wonder, well, what are we Prodigy going to do with this that belongs to Weyland-Yutani? Is it finders keepers, or do we do the honorable thing and return it to its rightful owner? But we shall see later on in the review.
Yes.